So welcome to the long video of the staircase. This is a softwood staircase with winders, and at the minute I'm just sorting out the treads, just going through them all. Basically going to alternate the grain and get my best faces and pair them all up. I'm not that really worried about the grain, it's more about what the timber looks like and stuff, but if I can do it, happy days. And then I will go onto the spindle and set that up with the joining block. It's basically one up, one down. As I was sorting them a minute ago, you would see I was putting a crayon mark on there. So that's so I can put what for up. So once the crayon mark will be up, the second time it would be down. And that's just how we join them. This works quite nicely. And like always, when I do a staircase, and I've said many times before, I always do a rod. Obviously not on a straight flight, but as this has got winders in it, I need to rod them out. So I'm just going to draw this staircase section winder box out 1 to 1, so I can mark all my winders and make sure everything's happy. So the line I'm putting on there now is the center of the stairs, basically your walkway, and I'm now evening that out, trying to keep it as close to the going as possible. Sometimes you won't get it right, but you might put your ruler the other side, like 25mm a different direction, and it's fine, so it doesn't bother me in the slightest. And now I'm just checking out where I put the lines through for the winders, because I need the 50mm abutment. So just making sure I've got it striking through the walkway and a 50mm abutment around the Newel, and then happy days. Then what I'm doing now is marking my housing line, which is 12mm in. Just do all of that, and should work quite well. And then it's a case of, once I've got my rod and I know exactly what I want, I can then start basically gluing up laying out my winders, which is what I'm doing now, laying them on the rod, making sure I've got plenty on there, so I can then start cutting, and then I can start move to gluing up once I've done this. But it's just going through the timber, seeing where I am again, looking at the grain, looking at what it looks like. What it looks like is, I don't want to see a dirty great knot in it. So if that was the case, I'd actually have the grain just go in the same direction. Well, when I'm talking about grains, I'm talking when you're looking at the end grain, if you've got one cupping up and one cupping down, really they should start to work against each other, but timber's not that great these days. I always like it when you don't have an actual C and it's actually quite straight, so it's quite a neutral grain then. Don't get much of that these days, so we're not that lucky. But generally I would like to try and keep one up, one down, but it's not that important. As a staircase, it's going to be like housed in and wedged in, so it doesn't matter too much. Reason I put that line on there is when I glue up the winders, I can basically have them exact same place again. So as long as I get that triangle joined up, I know it's going to work. So now we're on the gluing up process. Sorry, it's just gluing this up with I think it's just normal PVA, D4 PVA, plenty of glue. Always clean it off afterwards. Not too many in there at one time, so they pull up nicely. 2 cramps on the bottom, 1 cramp over the top, make sure they stay flat. And yeah, happy days. Get them glued up, clean the excess off, wait, and then move on to the next bit. And so now you can see what that triangle was for on the winders, just to glue it all up. And I know if I glue them up in that, how it is with that triangle joining, when I lay them back on later on, it should all work. But you will see in a minute, I picked up the wrong thread in a minute, glued it all, and then realised I'd actually done this to the wrong one. So I had to ask someone in the workshop to come and grab that and glue that up quickly, because it was going to go off, and then pick up the right one and glue it. So I just tried to get 2 of these in with the clamps at once, just to save on clamps and make it a bit easier. Bit of a faff, but it's not the end of the world. It just saves a few clamps, and instead of having loads going around the workshop. So It's a bit awkward, but yeah, we got there in the end. And every time I do a staircase, I like to join my strings up oversize. Then I put them over the overhand so I get a nice straight edge, and then I rip them down. As I've said in the previous video, generally my strings are around 250mm wide. So I've overhand it and just now ripping these at 250mm. Once I've done that, I can then move to the bench to start the next process. Bit rushed that first bit because it was all coming at me so quick, and I'm a little bit out of practice doing voiceovers, so bear with me. Just trying to show a bit more what we're doing. So now we've overhanded it, ripped it, then just put it through the sander. Some of you might say, why don't we sand it first? It's just going to get more damage. It doesn't really make any difference as far as I'm concerned. We're just giving this a light skim before we go on the bench and start marking out our margin, and then marking out all our treads and risers. Because obviously, just in case they're not 100% flush, which they'd be very, very close, but just make sure it's nice and flush, glues all off it, so I can then move on to the next process. So, the staircase takes a long time to get anywhere, and then all of a sudden it's just done, which you will see in this video. So they're all through now, and now I'm marking out the rise and the go in on a roofing square. We use a roofing square with stair buttons, just a lot easier, as I mentioned before. Some people will use a pitch board using MDF and timber, but for this particular one it's just as easy to use a roofing square. Put some masking tape on, then square a line over right on your go in, and the same for the rise. As you can see, when I do it and I've marked it, I will always write the rise or the going on there just as a reference point, just so I know where I am. And like previous mentioned, I pretty much always do a 50mm margin on the underside of my strings, unless it's got 32mm treads, then I just increase it to like 60mm. Marking on here with a biro, just generally find it easier than a pencil, but as you could see, it wasn't playing ball always, so sometimes it can be a pain in the bum. And what I've done is laid that on there, the square onto the margin, so it sets the rise and the go in. I just put a glue bottle on there just to hold it in place, as you can see, so I can use both hands just whilst I get these stair buttons slid on. I won't do them up properly tight now, I just be finger tight, and then I will move the square up and down the string, just making sure the margin lines are on the same place every single time. And when I do these, I generally only do a little line at first, just to make sure I'm in the right place on the string. But I've already done that, and now I'm going up all the way now because I know I've got plenty to work with, so it's not a problem. But as a test, which you didn't see, I will generally go up there just a tiny little line so it doesn't get confusing. I have done it before where I've got a bit sure of myself, just started and then realised I haven't quite got enough or haven't quite done it how I thought I should have. So that's just what I do. Now, just where this is a winder section here, I'm just drawing out the winders roughly so I can figure out what timber I need to glue on, which we call easings. So before I do this before routering, just so I know everything's going to work. It's so much easier to do it all now. If you need to make any changes, you can do. So just, this isn't 100% by the way, it's just a bit crude. You know, whatever the rise was, argument's sake on this, it's 190, but if I mark at 195 or 191, it's not the end of the world. It's just trying to mark it out roughly so I know all these easings I'm going to glue on later on, I've got enough timber for shaping how I want it to be. Later on in the video it'll make a lot more sense, but this is just very, very crude at the moment. So once I've done that, just set up the router. Like always, we don't have a CNC machine. We're not interested in getting one. I enjoy doing stairs, you know, this way around. Can be a bit boring sometimes routing out strings, but it's just how we do them, and it's not too bad. Feels a bit more personal, you know, doing it this way. Again, double check them all the way up there, making sure it is right, just in case something's wrong, but I always like to do it that way for some reason. For those of you that say, why haven't I got ear protection on? I do. I have like molded ear protection, which just slides in my ear so you don't see them all the time. Sometimes in this video you probably notice them, but sometimes you won't. Yeah, just we always do it this way, hoover out after every single one. Well, whilst we're doing it, try and keep the dust and the rubbish down because it is a bit of a messy, dusty job. And as you can see there, now we've done a couple, just double checking. We will do this every so often. Just double check the rise and the going, making sure nothing's moved. It shouldn't, because as you could probably see here, we actually screwed the jig down. I only do a tiny little bit of pressure to hold it in place whilst I put the screws in, because I think if you just rely on the handle, as you can see now, it can move, and I have had it move in the past, which is why we actually just a little bit of pressure and then actually screw it down, so the screws are what holds the jig in place. And if you're wondering why we are having to put this piece of timber in every time I set up, it's because we router out of a dovetail cutter, and it's the offset from the cutter to the outside of the jig. Cut this blunting a little bit there, which is why I have to start taking those little fluffy bits off. But now it's all routed out properly. And I've done the gluing up of the easings. Now I will actually draw this on there properly, mark it all out. I will keep referring to the rod, which is another reason why we do the rod. All my measurements are there. If I draw this out as it is on the rod, I know it will work perfectly later on. So just keep double checking it all, making sure all the measurements are right. You know, you want to spend your time doing this now because it, you know, it pays off later on. So I gave myself plenty of timber because so I can router it out. Well, so shaping the easings. All the easings are drawn on there now. All the shaping is done, and then we just use these bits of MDF just to run around. This is a straight flute cutter now. It's just a lot easier for doing the winders and stuff. So yeah, some people may agree, some people won't. But also, as you can, some of you might say on this, well, why haven't I routed out, put a wedge on that piece of the tread that you can see there? That's because as that's a return, you can't really wedge it in because you've got a riser one way, then you've got the return of the staircase back the other way. So I never router them in. Well, I router them in obviously, but I don't ever wedge those. I just screw from the outside. Some of you will notice there was a change of router, and that is because the trigger basically went on the other one. So we moved over to this one. I'm not so keen on this router, to be honest. It was a quick buy, and yeah, it's very amateurish. It'd be okay if you're a man in a shed not using it very often, but something that's going to get used all day, every day, is in a professional environment. I wouldn't recommend it, if I'm honest with you. Now, keen-eyed of you will see there's a mistake going to happen in a minute. When on the winders where you've got right angle, I always tongue them in. And generally, at the bottom, I don't mind it sticking, the tongue running through, because of the, you're never going to see it. Now, where I was thinking about filming, I actually lost where I was. And as you can see on there, I've routed out the top and left it at the bottom. Shouldn't have done that. It's just filming distracts sometimes and makes a few mistakes. So not the end of the world. Softwood staircase, we just glued the piece in to get over it. It's not a problem. It's all going to be painted anyway, but I want to be transparent with it all and not lie to you. So, we did make a mistake, but this is what we do to get over it. This is just a rough fit for now, just to check. We're there or thereabouts, making sure all the shape lines up with all the treads and stuff. I'm not worried about that gap you could see there, because when we actually come to the proper fit later on, we can just put a screw in there to pull that all in. That's no problems. So what I'm doing now is marking out strings for the Newel posts. Try doing this with a POV camera. Not sure if it's now or later on, but I give up with it because they keep getting in the way, and I'm having to stop every time what I'm doing just to keep checking I could see where I'm filming, which was really quite annoying, really quite distracting, which is why some of this might look a little bit faffy. It's because I'm trying to see what I'm filming and what I'm marking out at the same time. So I do apologise about that if it does look that way, but that is the reason for it. Again, refer back to the rod where I need to be. So it's all drawn on there, where my Newel is, where it is on the string, where my riser is, so I know what measurements to mark back to get my shoulder lines and stuff. Always double check, just in case you've looked at it wrong or been distracted or something. So I always, when I do these, I would always mark it out, then I always go back and double check, just in case there's a mistake or I've marked it out wrong or been distracted. And this is a prime example, which is why you should always go back and double check. I've obviously got it wrong, and now, because I've double checked it all, I've saved it beforehand. So the old saying, measure twice, cut once. Reason I moved to a bevel here instead of a square is just showing there's more than one way of doing it. You know, you can just use a square off the tread because you know it's going to be fine, but also you can use a bevel. So it's just showing more than one way. To be honest, I do both ways anyway, so it makes no difference to me. And marking the shoulder line, and the line you can see further back from that with crosses on is the actual tenon length. And I put S for shoulder and then a cross so I know where the tenon line is. Which you will see me cut off these in a minute with a saw. And then setting up the tenon, spending the time and effort to so I may have said this in a previous video, but we use a double shoulder. I know some people do a bare face tenon with only one shoulder. Not a huge fan of that because I feel it can twist the Newel around, if I'm completely honest with you. So we will always do a double shoulder on these. So you always do it on a tenoner, you know, don't have to. You can put straight edge, like screw fences on, you do a router and stuff if you don't have a tenoner. We have one. It's a lot quicker and easier. Make sure it's all exactly the same. Once you've got the angle, every one will be exactly the same then, but take your time, make sure it's all set up right. You know, do a little bit of an end, double check your shoulders are square, double check everything. You'll see in a minute, you know, I will be going backwards and forth, just double checking things, making sure everything's right, making sure the angle's right. Like everything in joinery, if you spend the time setting up properly, making sure everything is right, then it makes the life a lot easier later on. Speeds, it might take a 30 seconds longer at that particular moment, but it could save you minutes, if not hours later on. You know, it's just like here, making sure that's exactly in the right place. I don't want to be rushing it and go, oh, that's close enough. I want them exactly the same. So take the time, make sure it's all right. And then again, later on, it just saves so much more time. So all I'm doing now is just going to timbers long. Got a cut off saw on the tenor now, but it's really long, so just cutting the worst of it off. Some of you will say, why don't you cut off with a handsaw? Could do, but I have the saw here, so it won't take that much longer to do it. Just hold it in the right place and get it done. So you don't need to rush pushing them through the machine. Take your time. If you just whack them through, it's going to move, it's going to smash out the back and stuff like that. You know, let the machine cut, let it do its, you know, that's what it's there for. Let it cut, it'll come out a lot neater and say, happy days. Doing it in 2 hits because we don't want to be doing too much off in one time. Again, it's just about taking your time, making sure it's all right, making sure you're on them shoulder lines perfectly. Take your time, let it cut, and as you can see, then goes through the cut-off saw and the tenoner. Always go back and double check just in case you've made a mistake. You know, as was proved before, we saw earlier, I marked something out wrong earlier, so you shouldn't really get these wrong, but let's say it did slip in the machine or something like that and it's come out too long or too short. Now's the time, if it's too short, to replace it before you get too far ahead, and the machines are still set at the angle. And if it's too long, you can put it back on and just take a little bit off. So always double check things. So now all the strings are routed, all the easings are shaped and stuff like that, all tenon cut, and all the handrails tenon cut. It's now time to move on to the treads. So what we're going to do is put them all over the overhand to get a nice straight edge. So I'll have a look at them to see what edge I like the look of. You know, as you can see on the one that's going to be used next, there's a big knot there. So I don't want that as the nosing. So I would like to think I'd straighten the opposite edge. Could have this completely wrong. And then I would be able to rip that knot off. So what I would have done, which you haven't seen the footage for, I'd then cut, unless I haven't done it yet, but I'd imagine I have done, cut them all to width so they're ready to go through the spindle a bit later. And now it's a case of marking out the winders. So again, we use the rod for this because this is the whole point of drawing a rod out. We lay it on, we'll mark our points through, and then we will move to the saw and cut on the lines. So they're the earplugs I was talking about earlier. On the dimension, so what we've already done, or I can't remember if you see it in a minute or not, you may do, or I may have already set it up, but you see there's a board on there, and that board would have just been laid on there, set a fence to it, so it then cuts a tiny little edge off, then you know that board is right on the cut line. So from that, I can just put my pen lines on the edge of the board and I know it's going to cut it to the shape I need to. As long as you lay that on there right to the edge of the board and hold it nice and tight as you push it through, it won't be a problem. And as you can see, doing it all now, so I hadn't already shown that. So, and the reason we put that stop there is so the board doesn't move. So now all I need to do is line these pen lines up. And just repeat the process. Now, the reason I've marked on there +7 is I always tongue my treads into my risers, and I've done that because where I own the company, I sometimes get phone calls and stuff. So let's say I hadn't wrote that on there because I can't see a second line there. Phone rung, I got distracted, I went and cut on that line. It's going to be wrong. So I would always write on there +7 or whatever the tongue's going to be, just so I know if there isn't that secondary line there, I need to do it in case I get distracted or called away. So. See that line's still there. I've added the 7mm on, so. And once you've done them, mark, so I know that's a rebate coming out there to form a tongue, and then I'll just lay it back on the rod. Again, if it's wrong, it could have slipped, you might not have marked it 100%. I can go back to the saw and adjust it if needs be. It's all about taking your time on this type of thing, working to it. Don't just say, oh, that's close enough. It has to be right, because it will save you time later on. And once you've done one, it's the exact same process for all three. So what I was doing now is extending the line through, because as I was laying it on, it was covered up. So just every so often you extend the line through, mark it from the underside, and yeah, just lay on the rod, mark your lines, join the lines together, move over to the saw, cut on the line, and let's just repeat. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just so I know what line I'm marking to. I've marked it this end, and I will go down here and mark it. There's a lot of lines there. I could easily get distracted. So I've just double check it. I'm extending this line through and then marking it. Just again, so I don't mark to the wrong line. It's just a little thing I got shown when I was doing stairs. You know, you can easily get confused. Again, someone talks to you, distracts you. So now all the winders are cut, all the treads are cut, it's time to put the nosings on. So it's all been set up. We just screw this extra fence on there just so there's no risk of it diving in or anything like that. So it's just screwed on, pushed through, like a bit like an old breakthrough board really. And yeah, no problem whatsoever after this. Just keep feeding them through. Not 100% happy, slight flat on it, so small adjustment. Make sure it's all tight and just push them all through. I always run my nose in first, and then I just, as you can see now, I will tap them in. I'll put a wedge in there probably, just to make sure it's up in the right place, and I can then mark where the riser is and make sure I get it exactly right basically. I know I've seen some people before guess where the nosing is, argument's sake, say, oh, it's 25mm. And then they've run all the grooves at that, and then they've put the nosing on, and then they've actually taken a little bit off the nosing. So basically the riser is sticking past where the rising line is, where when I do these, I actually like the riser groove to be, let's say it's a 25mm nosing, like do 25.5, so you've got an extra 1/2 mil. So when you wedge it up, it pulls that in nice and tight. Where if you do the other way and it's actually sitting past, it's not going to do anything. So that's why we always put the nosing on first and then go back and double check. So do it now and then go and double check. Make sure it's just sitting past ever so slightly. You can see I've left my pen line in. And if I feel like I need to readjust it, I will do. Or if I'm happy with it, I just go back and run them all. So always put another fence on, safety first. You don't want your hands anywhere too close to cutters and stuff. So I find these a lot easier to just push through manually instead of using a feed. I can just keep the constant pressure down. That fence is holding it in. I just find it works better for me. So if you feel more comfortable doing it with a fence, by all means do a fence. This is not a how it should be done video. It's just showing how we go about the process of making things. So I do appreciate there's more than one way to go about these things, and it's whatever works for you really. Well, I'm glad I am showing it this way. So I hadn't obviously cut these, which I would really hoped I hadn't done, because should always put the nose, again, same as before, always put the nosing on first and then cut to the size, because let's say you make a mistake, this way you're always allowing for something goes a little bit wrong, you can make corrections and stuff. So this is why you should go about, do the nosing, do the riser groove, cut to width. And like I said before, I always tongue my treads into my risers, so I can now put the rebate in the back. This is a bit more faffy doing this way. It does take longer, but at the end of the day, it will make things a lot better. Like, you get far less squeaking. It's just a far better way of doing it. But I appreciate for some people it's a faff they don't want to get involved in. So all it is now is marking the tenons on the end of the strings. So just mark them out, make sure I'm happy with it all. I know some people will not bother with this and they just won't put a haunch in it and they just mortise the whole thing out. But I know some of you will also put a haunch in there. I like a haunch. I think it gives the more stability to the Newel, stops it opening up, which is why we do this. Again, it's whatever works best for you. So that dirty great knot that you can see in there, that will get filled later. This is well, it's obviously a softwood staircase, but it is going to get painted and also a carpet runner up there. If that wasn't the case, we wouldn't be using this. So that will get filled because it is going to get painted and also covered with a carpet. But let's say they wasn't doing it and they was just going to wax it or something like that, then we wouldn't have used that piece of wood. So now it's time to router out the nosings on the staircase for the winders. So again, come back to the rod where see all the nosings generally are 25mm, but as you can appreciate, when you're going around a winder with the angle, they increase. So back to the rod, check what size I need to do, mark it on the string, and then it'll be a case of taking the worst out with a router and finishing off by hand. And we always like take our time with this. You know, we don't want to rush it. If we try and take it all out and bash it all in one hit, it's just something's gonna go wrong. So we take our time, get as much out of the router as possible, and then go round and finish with a chisel. And then I will go round the nosing with a gouge, and I will undercut it slightly as well, just to make my life a little bit easier. And on some of these, where again it's on the angle, as you can see, it won't go up at the moment, because the way the angles work, it's going to hit. So what we have to do is put it in there in the housing, and then use a chisel or whatever you want to use just to mark that line, as I'm doing right now. And then you can just take that back, which it will then, once you've done that, it will then locate itself nicely, as you will see in a minute. Again, no rush with this. Take your time, a little bit at a time. Just makes it a lot easier, shapes it nicely. And then happy days. So as I'm fitting up, I always do my fitting up first. It's not like a staircase you buy from a massive CNC factory. It just bashes out hundreds a day, and then you've got to do all this fitting up yourself on site. We will fit all our staircases up. They go out pre-assembled. Well, we will pre-assemble in the workshop, as you'll see, and they're all labelled up. So as I'm on this fitting up process, I will do my wedges as I go for my winders. So I will done the nosing, sorting out the wedge, say marking out now. I'll cut it and I'll just keep working it so it's nice and tight. But you'll see the whole process. I know some people do 2 or 3 wedges along winders, which is absolutely fine if that's what you want to do. I just prefer one big long wedge. Honestly, don't know if it makes any difference, but for me, I just prefer it. So it's just now. We'll always keep checking it, make sure it's nice, because as you will see in a minute as I push it in, it's tight in one area but not the other, so as you can see there. So we'll just keep finding out where it's loose, taking out the high spots of the wedge, just so it's nice all the way through. So once we're happy with it, we will then put it in, mark it up as tread 9, and then we know it's done later on. Not a problem. So we fitted the winders around the strings, and you've also got to fit the winders around the Newel. So what we will do is, again, always back to that rod. We will lay it on there, mark these. The secondary line on here is my housing line. So the outer line is the face of the Newel. The second line is where the router and out will be, which is what we've got to cut these to. So we just lay it on there, mark these housing lines. And once we've done that, we will then move over to the saw, cut them out on these lines, and then lay them back on the rod, make sure it all works. And yeah, that's then fitted round, well, cut to go around the Newel. Then we've got to actually lay them into the Newel itself, which you will see in a bit. Obviously the winders are a lot easier because they're just a straight cut, but the kite actually goes round 2 faces of the Newel, so it's a little bit more involved. but they would have been laid back on there just to make sure it all works. So now what you saw me doing there was marking the pitch lines on the strings, so I can go to start marking out the Newel. Pitch lines are important because that's where your handrail height is set from. So it will be 900 from the pitch line to the top of the handrail. So that's why they put them on there. And then I just mark everything from that. And once they're all marked out, we will go to the mortise out. As we say, we marked the tenons on the string earlier, so that's fine. Now we just mortise them all out. Generally, we do stairs. As you saw, we did the Newels, the actual mortise first, and then the haunches second. So the Newels have been marked out, and now I like to take the worst of it out on a spindle. I just find it a lot easier. So as you're going around the winders, there's a lot of different heights that the risers will be set in, but for me, it's just much easier to do the worst of it on the spindle, and then you can come to what we're doing now and marking things out properly, and then finish it all off with a router and then off by hand again, which will take your time. And then we can just work our way. This is the bottom Newel, so it's nice and easy, quick, this one. But take our time, using the chisel, using gouges, undercutting everything. Keep checking it, make sure it fits, so we can make the adjustments now whilst it's nice and simple. We've got our test piece. So once we know that bit works, we then put our string in it. And we can then say it's all part of the fitting up. So much easier to fit up when it's before the staircase is together. Now, as you could see there, some of you would have noticed I made a mistake there. I had the test piece laying the wrong way round, which at this moment in time I hadn't figured this out. And unfortunately, I won't figure this out until it's too late, basically. But so we're human, we all make mistakes, but we got around it, so it's not the end of the world. And I'm sure you will see later on, but I'll explain it anyway. I'm not looking to hide anything from you guys. Some of you might ask what that angle part is. It's basically for when I'm fitting up later on, so it gives me room to get the riser and slide it up and in. If it was just a straight line there, you just don't have the room, so I always put an angle there just so I can just push the top of the riser into the housing and then force its way up in. It'll make sense a lot later on when you see me fitting up the staircase. But this would all, again, these would have all been marked off the Newel, off the rod, like always. Router it all out. And so as you can see here, there's a little patch at the bottom. You can see the grain. It's never going to be seen because it's all underneath the staircase, but that was the mistake. So we just patched it in. And again, it's all painted, but even if it wasn't painted, it's still never going to be seen. So it's not worth replacing a whole Newel for. We just patch it in. So we've marked we're basically drilling out for draw boring is what we're doing now. I do these on a pillar drill just because I have one, and that way it's definitely nice and straight. Just makes life a lot easier. I did used to do them by hand, but I just find it easier doing them on a pillar drill these days. And once I've done all of those, I will then go back and mark the But as you can see here, I'm putting a drill bit into the hole just to mark where the point is, and it's for the draw boring part. But obviously you want a draw bore. The idea of a draw bore is as you knock the peg in or dowel, it pulls it up tight. So now we know exactly where it is. I always put a straight line so I know it's pulling in the right direction instead of just guessing it. So I know it's pulling straight and not pulling itself left or right. But in a minute, so really what you want to do then is go towards the shoulder by whatever amount you choose to do. We generally use a mil. I find that's enough for what we're doing, but what I actually got here is a block. So that fence on the pillar drill was set at 19 mil to the center of the hole. This is set at 18. So it's actually, when we drill the hole, it will be a mil closer. Hence I said a minute ago, we offset by a mil. And the reason I now do this is the amount of times in the past where it hits a soft bit of timber and it moves it, it pulls it left, it pulls it right, and the rest of it. It was just an absolute pain in the bum. And then I decided one day, why don't I just I've got a pillar drill, why don't I drill a hole into a block of wood and, drill it on the 19, put it through the saw to form 18, and then I've got a perfect offset every single time, and it just works. And I don't know what I didn't think of it sooner, to be honest. This does its job lovely. So, like always, I always test my stuff. So these are draw bore pins, so we knock them in, make sure it pulls up nice and tight. And then I'll just check the tread in there, and I'll do all my fitting up beforehand. As I've mentioned a couple of times before, it's just so much easier. So, where I'm doing it now, if I'm not happy with it, I can do an adjustment to it. Just try and do much fitting up before you put the staircase together, because once it's together, it just makes it all so much easier. So yeah, it's just the same process. We've done the bottom newel. We're now doing the winder newel where the string comes into it. So we're going to pull that in, hold it up nice and tight, mark the tenon yet again. I just always slide this in as well, just so I know it's all in the right place, just in case there is any movement in there. Use a clamp to pull it in. Don't have to, but why not? It's going to be in the right place then, and it's working for you. It's all pulled up nice and tight. I have marked them, and yet again put the block on. Okay, the block is quite big. Does it need to be that big? Probably not, but I wanted it quite high, so obviously I'm not moving so much. And what we're doing now is the exact same process as you saw a minute ago when we was fitting the winders around the strings. As I said, we'll do the exact same process again around the newel. So hold it in the right place. Obviously it's quite hard because you've got nothing to guide you, so you've got to try and eye it a bit, and then just use a chisel, mark the line all the way around, and then you know where you've got to fit to later on. Well, to cut it all out. And so now all we're doing is the risers. As I said, I've tongued the risers into the groove, so obviously the risers need a groove, so that's what I'm doing now. And I always creg my risers into the underside of the tread. I just glue and screw them basically, creg or pocket hole, whatever you want to call it. So it just makes life easier. And I always pre-drill my holes for the risers where they screw into the treads beforehand. Again, I have a pillar drill. I like to keep it all exactly the same. Why? It's my OCD, I suppose, and I think it looks a lot neater and it for me, it makes it look like you care. If everything's all nice, done, spaced out, you know, it looks like whoever's done this actually cares about it instead of holes all over the place. That's just my opinion, and yeah, it is what it is. So it'd be a case of quick sand of the face, quick rub of the nose in. Again, it's all going to be painted and carpeted anyway. A carpet runner, so it's not going to be all carpeted, hence it's softwood and not MDF. Sand them all up, and then glue the risers in, screw them in with the Craigs, and it's ready for fitting up later on. I'm not put these through the speed sander because they've cupped a little bit. Nothing major, but they have cupped a bit, and I don't need to, is the honest answer. You know, for what they are, they'll be absolutely fine. So just sand the top of it all, because the underside doesn't matter, because spiders aren't going to moan if there's a number on there or anything. So because we tongue it all on, it's a bit more of a process putting it together. So you have to just build it all up. But also the good thing doing it this way is beforehand you could, you know, we put the glue in there, we glue it all up. Probably didn't glue right. If you don't do it this way, you probably won't glue your risers, because if you just push them all in and then wedge it all up and screw your risers, like the glue could start going off, and if it's not quite right, it can cause you a problem where the glue's going off. But at least this way, it's locating itself in there. It's all going to be glued, and you don't have, and you screw these risers up, screw the risers into the tread, as you'll see in a second. It's just done. It's a process done before it, you know, before, so you don't have to worry about it later on. It's just, okay, this one's been a bit of a pickle, but most of the time it's just a lot easier, I find. So we will just build the whole staircase up like this. Glue, screw, tread and riser together, and then repeat the process all the way up. Obviously we want the groove reasonably tight, which is why it can be a bit of a pickle now and again, because if it's loose, what's the point of having it? Now these, if I'm honest, these treads were a little bit thick. I should have probably sanded a bit more, because they are a bit tight getting into that nosing. It's made it a little bit awkward. So something for me to think about next time round. I wanted them tight on purpose, so you had a nice clear, like, tight nosing, but they were just that fraction too tight, which made this bit a little bit more awkward than it needed to be, really. You know, we had to spend the time locating it all and making sure it was absolutely fine, but they were a pain in the bum. So we don't have a stair press or anything like that, so we just do them on our side. Old door blank underneath on the trestles, door blank over the top, holds it all nice and straight. Couple of sash clamps all the way along, nice even pressure, and works quite well. They've all would have been knocked up, they're all nice and tight, and then go round wedging up. I always like to lay my wedges in first, just because so I know where I am, you know. It works, for me, it works well. Always do the risers first. That way it just knocks it all up, pulls it all up nice and tight. I don't know if anyone does the treads first, you know. I'm sure some people do, and that's fine for them. If it works for them, happy days. But I was always told, do your risers first. It will pull up your nosings then, and it's not a problem. But I want these reasonably tight, so you know they are pretty tight. But anyone who's watched the hammer video, I wasn't a huge fan of this hammer at first, but I actually must admit it felt really good using it this time, wedging up the stairs. I don't know if it's because I just hadn't got used to it before, but yeah, it was actually quite nice. So now all the stairs are wedged up. There's a case of fitting everything up, making sure it all goes together properly, making sure everything we've done so far works. Should do, but there will be some small little tweaks as always. This clamp, you don't actually need it. It's just because it was short, and with the weight of the Newel is moving so much, so it was just easier to just whack that clamp on just to hold it in place. Pull it a little bit whilst I put screws it all and fit it all up. So yeah, we will, as you see now, this staircase is fully assembled. Reason we do this is I've had it before where we've sent it out to be fitted and the builder or whoever it is has said your staircase doesn't work, it doesn't fit. And I was like, well, I know for a fact it does because we pre-assembled in the workshop and we actually had to go out and do it. But for some reason, it did all go together, no issues. It's just, I don't think they really knew what they were doing, where if we do this, they can't say that. So, which is why we'll always pre-fit everything first, because there is, on this one, there's a couple of tweaks we need to do to make sure it's right, and you won't see me do those tweaks because I do it after I've taken it apart, but I will highlight the fact that you'll see a couple of things in a minute which aren't quite right, but I will point that out and tell you what we did to get over it. First one you can see at the moment, this, I haven't put the kite in and we won't be able to get that in a minute, so it does have to come back apart again, but I don't think you see that. You might do. We always level it up, make sure it's, you know, because that's how it will be done on site, so make sure it's all level, yeah, and start fitting up. But I haven't realised yet that I haven't put the kite in and I'm going to struggle later on. So yeah, I did realise I hadn't got the kite in, so I had to take it back apart and then slide that kite in. But you can see it ever slight, you can see a gap around that nosing of that kite. I wasn't happy with that, so this is why we fit things up beforehand before it goes out. So when I took it apart, all I had to do was just take a fraction off the back shoulder, which allowed it to move in that little bit more, and it solved the problem. It wasn't an issue whatsoever. It's just, and this is the whole point of fitting up and why we do fitting up, just so we can get over small little problems like this. I'm sure you will see that later on when when it's all together. You can see a couple of little bits, but yeah, so we did get over it. It's not a problem. So again, the winder risers, lay them on the rod, mark where they need to be lengthwise, mark the angles on there, cut them to the angles. And like we had with the treads, we had to take some off by hand. It's exactly the same with the risers. So do all the shaping we need to, again, pocket it all in and screw with the pillar drill for the risers. People have told me in the past you shouldn't tongue your treads into your risers because it doesn't work around winders. Don't know where they've got that information from, because as you can see, I've done it and I will be, you'll see this all fitted up in a minute. So, you know, I don't see how they got it. Yeah, it's a bit awkward, but it does work if you persevere with it and you do what you need to. You would just sit on that riser there. It's moved a little bit, so all we did was chamfer the back and face, so it just guides itself in a lot easier. And yeah, it's gone in. Tight. All done. This will be all done, dry screwed. That way it's all fitted up and works well. Any changes I need to do, I will do them here. This is the whole point of this. So label everything up, label where the screws go. That way they can't say it's not been fitted up, and we try to make it as easy as possible for people. So this is it, all done, fitted. Some of you are going to say, why is the handrail left square? That's because we was waiting on cutters to come in, so that wasn't going to be that profile. It did change. As you can see on that nose in there, bit of a hairline there. That's the one we adjusted, so it wasn't too much of a problem. And the reason there's no Newel at the top is because that is getting fitted on site into an existing oak beam. So that's why that's all been left long, so they can do what they need to, and then they're going to cut and fit their handrail on site to that. So as you can see, all done, all labelled up. So there should be no problems with it. This is the whole reason of it. What screws go where? So they're going through the face. And yeah, all in all, it came out really well. We was really happy with it after those small couple of changes. Unfortunately, I've not been sent any videos or pictures of it fitted on site, so I can't show you that. But when the handrail was really nice as well, actually. But again, we didn't have any. It was all basically, done really for that. So I wasn't going to take a picture just to show the handrail, but handrail was shaped, and that was it. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments, please leave them down there. And we are close to 1,000 subscribers. So yeah, please subscribe, and thank you for watching.